This week, there were some really great opportunities on some of the JPY pairs, and in today's video, I'm going to talk briefly about a couple trades that I took this week inside of our VIP community that we offer here at A1 Trading. And what we're going to be doing is walking through why I got involved in the trades, as well as kind of the mindset and how the trades actually played out. So I took two trades on JPY pairs this week. I typically want to be careful when I trade JPY pairs because they can be very volatile. They can kind of reverse on you really quickly. They can be big movers, if you will. But there are some opportunities that come along with this pair that I absolutely love. And this week we actually got two trades that met my criteria for an entry. I shared them with members inside of our community at A1 Trading. And so what I'm going to do is, again, talk a little bit about these trades. I traded New Zealand yen and one other pair that we'll get to in a moment. Let's dive into it right now. Hey traders, hope you're having a fantastic day. Today we're going to talk a little bit about two trades that I took this week on the JPY pairs and why I actually got into them. So let's start here with New Zealand yen. Now, if we back up, I think one thing I'm going to talk about here is usually when I'm taking trades, I'm using multiple time frames or multiple time frame analysis to make my decisions about potential price movements. I'm using a combination of multiple different technical factors, as well as kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in the world of currencies, or even just the world of markets in general, right? We have coronavirus going on right now, which is certainly something to be mindful of when placing investments, as well as just keeping an eye on overall things in general. But I actually liked the idea of what we saw here this week. And I think the first thing we need to do is, of course, take a look at the 4-hour chart. Again, I placed this trade on the 4-hour and the 1-hour chart. And what I noticed about New Zealand yen is that we were in the context of a downtrending market, right? We're looking here at the 4-hour chart. And what you'll notice is that price was making a series of lower lows, pushing strongly to the downside at the start of the week. You can actually see we gapped open on this particular move, and price continued this week last week to really sell off into kind of this pressure. So at first I didn't really have any sort of setups here, but things started to change when we actually got a shift in market sentiment or a market environment. So this is where I'm going to talk about identifying the market environment you're in. If you're in a trending market, in my opinion, one of the best strategies is to look to sell on retracements or buy and pullbacks if you're going in an up market. But when you're in a sideways market, I really love the idea of trading the back and forth. And that's exactly what we actually did on both of these JPY pair trades that I'm going to get to in today's video. So trading the range, in my opinion, there's some really good opportunities to be buying in the lows and selling in the highs. You've probably heard the saying, buy low, sell high. Well, this is kind of what we're trying to do in this particular example. So I know that this market is overall moving to the downside with a lot of momentum. So I don't really want to get in some massive long position. I'm going to be careful here about trying to buy, but there was a setup that I really liked, and you can see it, spoiler, right here at the bottom of the screen. But I want to talk a little bit about why I actually ended up taking this trade. So remember, we talked about the idea that we were downtrending very strongly. Well, we actually got a very nice bullish bounce or a rally to the upside that kind of showed that, this market may be ready to potentially have some buyers actually speak up and actually be a part of the movement. During this time, there was only really sellers kind of controlling the price movement. When we got this bounce right here, there was an idea that kind of popped in my head about the idea of a ranging market. So when price started to go back and forth, when we started to see this movement here, this is where I really started to get interested in a potential range style trading style. Remember, when we're going back and forth, my idea is I like to be trading the back and forth markets and trying to buy the lows and sell the highs. Well, we saw this particular example pull in here, and you can see price did ultimately kind of make a continued sell movement. Well, I liked the idea now. We've seen that buyers may have an interest in this market from this kind of bullish rally that ultimately on the 1-hour chart was a pretty good little run, right? We take it back to the 1-hour chart. We've got our analysis from the 4-hour chart, and you can see now we're starting to see a little context of a range-bound market, right? So we're back and forth, and you can see right here, we've got kind of evidence of buyers and sellers in this market. So when price started to rally to the downside, this is where I looked basically to get in long. And that's exactly why I actually took a position. I shared it with VIP members, and we got long right around the low based on previous levels of support. Right? So price came down to this area, and I remembered, or at least I saw from my analysis, that buyers stepped in pretty strongly here and had a nice good rally. So the risk to reward, which is a very important concept concept that I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. The risk to reward looked pretty good here for a potential bounce based on the fact that historically demand, we'll put D for demand, had been pretty good in this area by buyers previously, right? We got a really nice little bounce off of that low, and there's a pretty good chance, I thought, that we could see some sort of a bounce to the upside. So with that said, when price started to make a move back to the downside here, I looked to get long. Now remember, I basically just talked about the fact that there was a pretty good risk to reward. Whenever I'm placing a trade, I'm going to try and keep in mind what my potential risk is relative to the reward. And I said there's a pretty good chance that I think we see a bounce here. Sure enough, we actually did, and I got long on the level of kind of retesting this gray zone. This is right around where I entered the trade long, so I took a buy position. Nothing crazy, it wasn't a massive position size on my account, but things worked out very nicely, and we actually targeted right around this moving average here. You can see I got out of the trade there right around once price kind of came in here. I'll zoom in just a bit more. When price came up here, we saw a little bit of rejection. Price pulled back, and that was kind of like, oh man, am I gonna just take a stop out or a break even here? But ultimately price did make one more push to the upside. I believe this was news, which helped us out. You know, a lot of times people talk about the fact that news only hurts them. Well, sometimes news actually helps you out. So in this case, we took a profit there of, I think it was just about 55 pips, I believe, is roughly what we got on the trade. I just drew this in. The actual trade, I don't trade on TradingView usually, so I took the trade on MetaTrader, but overall trade worked out very nicely. We caught the low, we caught the bounce here off of that level, and overall that trade setup worked pretty good. Now remember, I mentioned that I traded one other pair here. We'll take it to GBP JPY, and this was also a JPY trade that actually worked out pretty good. So very similar concept, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. Is this pattern, or this concept, is one that we see happen a lot. Remember, I'm talking about trading the range of these markets and kind of catching the lows or the back and forth motions that we often see in these choppy market environments. So when price actually started making a move here, you can see a very similar story. We had a lot of bearishness. Well, then we started to see some back and forth. And on this particular bounce, we had seen 1, 2, 3. We had seen a couple times where price bounced nicely, and I looked to get long on the move back to this level. Now, this was a short-term trade. You can see we're looking at the 1-hour chart. We did kind of catch the lows. Price made a low or a push back down to this area where we found buyers once more. So we had buyers here, buyers here, buyers here. And on this kind of sharp bounce, when price made one more move back down there, I said, I think the risk to reward is pretty good. I'm going to take a buy trade. And sure enough, price worked in our favor there on this trade as well. So just about 66, 67 pips on the particular move here on GBP JPY. Now you might be asking, well, why didn't you go for the full range profit? And I'll tell you why. Overall, there's been a lot of fear in markets right now, and what that usually means is that people tend to buy the yen during times of fear, right? Well, what does that mean for GBP JPY? Well, what that means is that people buy the yen, which causes the GBP to go down relatively, which that's why we've seen a lot of bearish momentum overall here, right? There's been a lot of fear about the kind of stuff that's going on with the coronavirus. So my overall opinion was I just wanted to take a bounce off of this support level and not get too greedy with my trade. Overall, the risk to reward was pretty good. I took a couple trades on JPY pairs, and this week, or I'm sorry, last week was a really good little kind of trading session on GBP JPY as well as New Zealand yen, both of which presented kind of good range trading setups that I ended up making decent profits on. Okay, of course, these are not always going to be so easy. I'm going to take losses, of course, as well. But I wanted to talk about kind of spotting these range trading market environment potential ideas so that hopefully maybe you can look into this concept if you like to trade range-bound markets. Some people don't like to trade range-bound markets. If you're still here watching the video, do you like to trade range-bound markets? If you do, comment down below. I'd like to hear from some of you guys that like to trade different styles. If you do like to see more of these videos, if you want to see more trade recap videos or concepts where I'm talking about trades, make sure to like the video down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you guys back next time.